Kabbalah is often presented today as mysterious, abstract, or even fashionable, but at its core it belongs to a very specific religious and intellectual world, Jewish mysticism. The word itself comes from Hebrew and carries the meaning of receiving or tradition. That matters, because Kabbalah was not originally imagined as a free-floating set of spiritual symbols. It was understood as something transmitted, received, and interpreted within Jewish life. A traditional Kabbalist is called a makubal, literally a receiver. The idea is not simply that someone invents secret wisdom, but that they receive a deeper layer of meaning hidden inside sacred texts, prayers, commandments, and the structure of creation itself. Kabbalah asks a dramatic question: what if the visible world is only the outer layer of a much deeper divine pattern? To understand Kabbalah, it helps to begin with its relationship to Scripture. Kabbalists did not usually see themselves as abandoning the Hebrew Bible or rabbinic tradition. Instead, they believed those sources contained concealed dimensions that ordinary reading could miss. A biblical verse could be law, story, poetry, and mystical map all at once. A commandment could be a practical religious obligation, but also an action with cosmic significance. This is why Kabbalah became a foundation for mystical interpretation within Judaism. It offered a way to read familiar texts as if every letter, number, name, and ritual gesture participated in a hidden order. For Kabbalists, religion was not only about belief or ethics. It was also about aligning human life with the unseen structure of divine reality. Kabbalah did not appear from nowhere. It emerged from earlier forms of Jewish mysticism that were already interested in heavenly realms, divine names, sacred letters, and visionary ascent. One important background is Hekkalot literature, a body of early mystical writings concerned with heavenly palaces and encounters with the divine presence. Another crucial predecessor is Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. This short and difficult text, probably written centuries before classical Kabbalah fully developed, presents creation through Hebrew letters, numbers, and cosmic correspondences. It is only a few pages long, yet its influence was enormous. It gave later mystics a symbolic language for thinking about the universe as structured through speech, number, and sacred pattern. In that sense, Sefer Yetzirah functions like a prelude to the larger Kabbalistic imagination. The major historical flowering of Kabbalah began in the 12th and 13th centuries in southern France, especially Occitania and Languedoc, among Jewish sages sometimes called the Hakmai province. One of the earliest major works associated with this phase is the Bahir, a strange and compact text full of symbolic interpretations, parables, and mystical speculation. The Bahir helped shape themes that would become central to Kabbalah, including the idea that divine reality expresses itself through structured powers or emanations. From this point, Kabbalistic teachings spread through Jewish communities in Catalonia, Spain, and beyond. This was not merely a local curiosity. It became part of a wider medieval Jewish intellectual world, developing alongside philosophy, biblical commentary, legal scholarship, and devotional practice. Spain became one of the most important regions in the development of Kabbalah, especially during the centuries when Jewish culture there produced major works of law, poetry, philosophy, and mysticism. The most famous Kabbalistic text, the Zohar, appeared in the late 13th century and became foundational for the tradition. It is usually associated with Moses de Leon, although it presents itself in the voice of earlier rabbinic sages. The Zohar is not a simple manual. It is a vast mystical commentary, filled with symbolic readings of the Torah, dramatic conversations, and layered teachings about God, creation, the soul, and religious action. Its influence was so great that, for many later Kabbalists, the Zohar stood beside the Bible and Talmud as a central source of sacred meaning. One reason the Zohar became so powerful is that it gave Kabbalah a rich mythic and symbolic language. Rather than speaking of God only in abstract philosophical terms, it described divine life as dynamic, relational, and structured. Kabbalists often speak of Ein Sof, the infinite divine reality beyond full human comprehension. From this hidden infinity, divine attributes or emanations become the channels through which creation exists and is sustained. These ideas are difficult because Kabbalah tries to speak about what is ultimately beyond speech. It uses symbols not as decorations, but as tools for approaching mystery. The point is not to reduce God to a diagram. The point is to show how the finite world might be connected to an infinite source. Kabbalah also changed how religious observance could be understood. In ordinary terms, a commandment is something a person does because it is required by tradition and law. In Kabbalistic interpretation, that same action may also repair, harmonize, or strengthen relationships within the divine order. Prayer, Sabbath observance, ritual purity, charity, study, and intention can become more than personal acts of devotion. They become participation in the hidden life of the cosmos. This does not mean that Kabbalah replaced Jewish law. Traditionally, it deepened the meaning of observance for those already living inside that legal and ritual framework. The visible act and invisible intention were tied together. Human behavior mattered because it echoed beyond the human scale. After the medieval period, Kabbalah continued to evolve. A major transformation came in the 16th century in Ottoman Palestine, especially in the city of Safed. This period is often called a Jewish mystical renaissance. The most influential figure associated with it was Isaac Luria, whose teachings reshaped the entire Kabbalistic tradition. Luria did not leave a simple textbook in his own hand that explains everything in a neat system. His ideas were transmitted mainly through disciples, especially in works later associated with Lurianic Kabbalah. Yet his influence was so profound that he is often called the father of contemporary Kabbalah. After Luria, many later Jewish mystical movements interpreted older Kabbalistic symbols through his dramatic vision of creation, rupture, exile, and repair. Lurianic Kabbalah is especially famous for its cosmic drama. In simplified terms, it describes creation not as a static event but as a process involving concealment, brokenness, and restoration. The divine infinite presence withdraws or makes space for creation, vessels receive divine light, those vessels shatter, and sparks of holiness become scattered through the world. Human beings then participate in tikkun, repair, by restoring those sparks through righteous action, prayer, and spiritual intention. These ideas gave Jewish suffering, exile, and daily religious practice a powerful mystical interpretation. The world was broken, but not meaningless. Every act could become part of a vast movement toward restoration. This made Kabbalah emotionally compelling as well as intellectually complex. From the 18th century onward, Kabbalistic ideas reached wider Jewish audiences through Hasidic Judaism. Hasidic teachers drew on Kabbalah, especially Lurianic themes, but often translated them into devotional language centered on joy, prayer, attachment to God, and the spiritual significance of ordinary life. This helped move some mystical ideas beyond small elite circles of scholars. Instead of focusing only on complex symbolism, Hasidic teaching could emphasize that divine presence fills all things, that intention matters deeply, and that even simple people can serve God with inward fire. Kabbalah did not become less profound in this context. It became more existential. The question was not only how the cosmos is structured, but how a person should live when the world is saturated with hidden holiness. In the modern period, Kabbalah also became a subject of academic study. One of the most important figures in this shift was Gershom Scholem, a 20th-century Jewish historian who helped establish the scholarly study of Kabbalah as a serious field. Before scholars like Scholem, many modern intellectuals treated mysticism as marginal, irrational, or embarrassing compared with philosophy and law. Scholem argued that Kabbalah was central to Jewish history and creativity. Academic study changed the conversation by asking historical questions. When were these texts written? Who transmitted them? How did ideas change across regions and centuries? This approach did not replace religious interpretation, but it added another lens. Kabbalah could now be studied both as sacred tradition and as historical phenomenon. So Kabbalah is best understood not as a single secret doctrine, but as an evolving tradition of Jewish mystical interpretation. It begins from the conviction that reality has hidden depth, that scripture contains concealed meaning, and that human action can matter on a cosmic level. Its roots reach back into earlier Jewish mystical texts like Sefer Yetzirah and Hekkalot literature. Its medieval flowering produced works like the Behir and the Zohar. Its later transformations, especially through Isaac Luria and Hasidic Judaism, gave it new emotional and devotional power. And modern scholarship has shown how historically rich and complex it really is. Kabbalah endures because it gives language to a powerful intuition that beneath ordinary life, there may be an invisible architecture connecting text, soul, world, and God. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.